What you're looking at is the world's largest commercial airplane in all her glory, the Airbus A380. This ultra-subsonic plane can take you from Dubai all the way to New York City without needing to land for a refuel. Except there's one problem. Actually, there's a few of them, but the most alarming being that despite being a massive plane with incredible features, the majority of airlines just don't want to buy it because of one specific reason. Okay, so when the Airbus A380 came onto the scene sometime in the 1980s, it was determined that its massive size, innovative design, and passenger capacity would revolutionize air travel. The engineers at Airbus were intending to surpass its rival counterpart, the Boeing 747, a successful commercial plane in its own right. In fact, Boeing was actually one of the original collaborators on the A380 in the beginning. However, when Boeing brought up the concern that the plane might not be lucrative enough to justify the money being spent, Airbus was kind of like, "Nah, I think we're fine." And Boeing just quietly took a step back, trusting that the professionals knew what they were doing. The engineers at Airbus envisioned their plane to be the most ultra-large, high-capacity aircraft the world has ever seen. But what they didn't foresee was that their vision would come at a price. A hefty price at that. One that other airlines are not too eager to contend with, because if you're setting out to build the most enormous, ambitious airplane, it's obviously going to be quite expensive to develop and operate. To understand how the A380's biggest selling point became the biggest reason they didn't get any sales, let's first talk about how big this airplane turned out to be. Let's break out the measuring tape. As you can see, in scale it comes out to 72.5 meters or 238 feet in length, and 80 meters or 262 feet accounting for wingspan, which is about the length of 6 school buses jammed together. The A380 structure is welded with carbon fiber reinforced polymers and aluminum lithium alloys, reducing the overall weight while maintaining its strength. For its shape, Airbus decided on an ovoid structure. If you were to take a giant knife and chop it in half, it can appear like a sliced eggshell when viewed at a cross-section. But this oval-like structure limits the amount of space reserved for a deck, so they opted to build a double deck to expand its size and create more room. To put it in perspective, most aircraft only contain a double deck in the smaller forward section of the plane, like the earlier models a la Boeing 747. Oh, and speaking of the 747, while it was reported that the A380 was designed to burn less fuel per mile than the older 747-400 models, the Airbus generating 20% more fuel efficiency than the 787 Dreamliner has been proven to be outdated. Recently, the Boeing 747-8 and 787 Dreamliner have worked to efficiently narrow the gap in fuel efficiency. Additionally, the Airbus A380 flies at about 561 miles per hour, which is 0.85 times the speed of sound. It also notably flies below a surface ceiling of 43,000 feet. While this design allows for a slower landing speed of only 130 knots, which should result in a smooth, steady touchdown, however, it can be rather difficult to land the aircraft, especially in the midst of crosswinds. While the A380 is capable of making journeys of up to 15,200 kilometers or 9,200 miles, a third of the globe's circumference, these long-haul journeys still require a massive amount of fuel. And I mean a lot of fuel. Not only that, but the Airbus could even carry up to approximately 853 passengers just in economy class, but it could potentially fill more people than that. This is a setup that has not yet been utilized by other airlines due to comfort and operational factors. Most of the time, airlines will limit their seating to 500 to 600 passengers across all class configurations. So while this establishes the A380 as having the largest passenger capacity, the reality is that the capacity is not without its trade-offs. Logistically speaking, they're not always going to be able to fill every seat, which only amounts to the high operational cost. If you're piloting an A380, you're basically operating an X-Wing starfighter. Some A380s, particularly ones owned by airlines such as Emirates, offer a more luxurious experience. I mean, look no further than the premium cabins. If you were to ever tour through these cabins, you will find first-class suites furnished with beds and showers that run with hot water. Imagine being able to recline back in your seat and enjoy the peace and quiet because you're definitely not going to hear the noise of the plane's engine whipping through the winds. So no need to pack noise-canceling headphones. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Some of these premium cabins take it a step further with horseshoe-shaped bar lounges, art displays, and even apartment suites for those on flights ranging over 24 hours. This would make a celebrity private jet look like the economy class of a Delta Airlines plane. Whoa, hold up. We also need to address the implications of financing this opulent, bougie experience. The premium cabins are only accessible to a small percentage of travelers who can afford it, and ticket prices can be outrageous. And although the A380 offers more cabin space than any other planes, this can lead to airlines trying to pack in as many passengers as possible to justify the costs. At first, you would admire that the A380 has attempted to reduce its carbon footprint by experimenting with more synthetic fuels. When you have larger wings on a plane, it's able to land much more slowly and steadily. In combination with noise reduction and low fuel consumption per passenger, this results in less CO2 and NOx emissions. Some private jets could benefit from taking a page out of A380's book. Yet aside from these perks, the A380 still fails to meet some of the standards of an eco-conscious industry. That's because it's still not quite as fuel efficient as some of the modern, smaller aircraft like Boeing 787 or the Airbus A350. Although the A380 and these smaller planes may use a lot of the same special materials like carbon fiber, reinforced polymers, and advanced alloys, the A380's massive size still requires a significant amount of fuel to operate. We know that the A380 is an impressive feat in terms of aircraft technology and engineering, constantly pushing the limits of long-haul travel. But despite its ingenious design, it continues to face serious problems, threatening its career in the sky. So, what exactly might have been a blind spot for the Airbus engineers? Because it seems like their grand vision isn't panning out the way they thought it would. Well, to put it simply, the A380 is just too expensive to operate compared to newer, smaller, and faster aircraft. It's almost as if Boeing warned them about this or something. The plane's massive size requires a high fuel consumption that amounts to 78 passenger miles per gallon, which is less than the 100 passenger miles per gallon of a 787. The Boeing 787 in general is just significantly cheaper to operate per hour compared to the Airbus A380, with costs ranging from about $9,500 to $11,000 versus $24,000 to $30,000 for the A380. Which would beg the question as to why the airlines would invest in a financial headache-inducing plane when smaller, fuel-efficient planes like the Boeing 787 and even the Airbus A350 can complete a lot of the same routes at a lower cost. Airbus isn't exactly trying to help itself either, since in 2013, the company rejected plans to create a freighter version of the A380, a version able to carry cargo. The Boeing 747 might not be as big as the A380, but there's one thing it does right that the A380 does not. The 747 can be used for both passengers and the 747-400 Dreamliner for cargo transport, while the A380 lacks variants that would appeal to airlines requiring different configurations. The 747 also benefits from having multiple variants that suit different market needs. Had the A380 leaned into creating a freighter model, it might have been able to retain some of its demand in the airline industry. But it may be too late for them to embrace versatility to regain favor. The fact of the matter is that most airports are not built to accommodate an airplane that would require a custom-fit infrastructure. The ideal airport for an A380 would be constructed with wider gates, longer runways, and reinforced taxiways. Some airports like LAX have had to make significant modifications to support the A380. They had to go as far as widening its gates to fit the massive wing size. The A380 has also faced a lot of delays and cost overruns during its production due to the complexity of assembling an aircraft of this nature. Keep in mind that the total development costs for the A380 program were estimated between $20 to $25 billion, yet Airbus admitted it would never be capable of breaking even. During the early half of its 15-year production run, the A380 faced many technical issues. We're talking engine failure and structural issues. No one wants to fly on a plane with leaking doors and cracks in the wings. As a result of its high operational costs, low market demand, and questionable reputation, several airlines are deciding to cut ties with the A380. Lufthansa, Malaysia Airlines, and Air France are retiring their fleets, while Emirates is beginning to slowly phase them out. It's easy to see, despite all its incredible features, it ultimately boils down to the high operational costs, lack of flexibility, and maintenance relative to the A380's size becoming a huge financial burden for airlines. So when the COVID-19 pandemic struck, it was the final nail in the coffin sealing the A380's future. The pandemic's impact on air travel was easily able to speed-run the decline of the Airbus A380. It made it even more evident to airlines that there was no point in investing in these massive airplanes when they were only allowed to carry so few passengers anyway. Airbus had to read the writing on the wall and realize there was low demand for their prized aircraft. So they've now gone forward with ceasing production on future models. Looks like its time soaring through the clouds is officially coming to an end. Bye for now.